I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is Real Sales Talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts Sean Mitchell and Phill Keen.
What is going on, Real Sales Talk family? We have a very special guest today, the one and only Sean Mitchell. So for all of you that are listening, we talked about it a couple times in a few different shows, and I'm genuinely curious about what's been going on in Sean's life, how the real estate world has been working. We've talked a little bit about the road he's taken to get there. He's actually documented it, so if you haven't gone to his Facebook page or watched any of the videos, go over there and check out the documentation he put together of the journey it took him to get to real estate. But I'm just genuinely curious. I want to get a little more tactical. I want to get deeper into what he's used from what his world of sales that he's bringing into real estate, how that works. But Sean, thanks for coming on the Real Sales Talk.
Thanks for inviting me. It's amazing to be on the show. I've heard so much about it. And can't wait to dig in. First
time caller, long time listener.
It's actually been really cool, and I know you mentioned this at the end of last week. I've been getting a lot of cool feedback from people who've been reaching out to me on LinkedIn and adding me, saying that they listen to Real Sales Talk and have been really enjoying it. So it's cool validation. I know you got a chance to go to a networking event and get some similar feedback, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to run into people that are listening to the show, and the feedback we get is so positive. So I can't tell anybody how appreciative we are of everybody. Like, it is amazing that you listen to our show. We're very grateful for everybody that's out there listening. We're actually picking up a lot of real estate folks out there, so this is part of the reason why I wanted to dive deeper. So everybody's out there that's in real estate, keep the grind, keep the hustle. Like, you guys are doing your job. I think this is an industry that needs to get disrupted. I think there's just too many lazy real estate agents that are out there in the world that just show up and want to do the bare minimum. We need hustlers out there that are willing to go above and beyond and be great real estate agents. So I'm super intrigued. So Sean, let's slow the world back down. Let's go back to young, good-looking Sean. I've seen the pictures that Heidi, your wife, posts on the internet. Let's go back there. Talk to me about your background, where you came from.
Yeah.
So really kind of what led us to here. And I want everybody to get context back for who you are.
Totally. I'm trying to think of how far back to go, because there's some interesting things in like my early 20s that I don't think I've ever shared on Real Sales Talk. So yeah, this will be an interesting tidbit and to try and kind of relate it to how I got to where I'm at now as a sales professional. So I was really involved with, and I don't want to make it too long because I want to get into some meat, but I was pretty involved as a teenager and in my early 20s in my church, and it just kind of happened to be the environment that I grew up in. My mom was pretty involved, and my mom's actually visiting Denver this week to help take care of my kids, but. So shout out to my mom if she can hear me in the room. But got really involved with ministry and missions, and even lived abroad in Europe doing church planning. And one of the things that you kind of do in church planning, it's sort of like a startup, actually. You've got to find this customer base, right? And you got to figure out how to get connected to your ideal customer that you want to attract. And so, one of the things in that we did in church planning was just to get out into the public and create, quote unquote, marketing campaigns to attract that ideal customer. And a lot of that involved very much things that I do in sales today, things that require a lot of rejection, things that require being able to have responses for objections. If you think about this in the context of like ministry and outreach, I mean, there's a lot of similarity there. So in my late teens and early 20s, I did quite a bit of that, which I realized later on in life that that sort of prepared me for my career in sales. Um, I I hadn't formally gotten into a sales role until I was 26, though, when I moved to Colorado Springs. I actually moved to Colorado Springs to be with my now wife, but at the time she was just someone who I was madly in love with. Um, and the only people that were hiring in 2006, if you think back to that time, it was sort of around that time where the economy was starting to kind of slow down. I got hired on at what would now be called um, a software company that's focusing on education as a service. But back then, it was a for-profit university called the University of Phoenix, and they had some fantastic sales training, some of the best that I've ever been through, and that kind of got me into software, the software career, as well as the sales thing. And from there, I kind of went to selling online ads at a local NBC TV station affiliate. And then after that, I started really kind of digging into, I think I found my stride in the next company, which is a startup, which if you've listened to the podcast, Bomb was kind of like my foray into real formal startup. I was the first sales guy. Technically, they're second, I suppose, but I was there for 4 years and helped grow their company. Well, this is kind of where the real estate thing starts to kind of come into picture, because when I first came on, one of the co-founders said, we're heavily, we've got a customer base in churches and ministry, but we want to branch out. We think that real estate might be the place that next industry is. So just keep an eye and an ear out for people that are coming in to sign up for a trial for the software, and also see what you can find out online and see if there are any events that we can attend. So coming from Austin, Texas, I know that Keller Williams, that's their world headquarters. So I pick up the phone and I call someone that actually looks like they've got responsibility. Well, that actually led to us becoming a preferred vendor of Keller Williams. And that weekend we went to one of their annual conferences, and we doubled the customer base in that single weekend. It was like a 4 day event, but it's their annual event. So, anyone goes to those things. That was kind of the entry into real estate. And I spent the remainder of my 4 years there at Bomb, helping them grow their customer base in the real estate space. I went all over the U.S. Representing the company at real estate events like Tom Ferry stuff, and almost every national event for every major brand. But that's kind of how my exposure to real estate began. And I kind of figured out, like, during that time, I really learned the business, and I thought, if I ever get into real estate, I know I could dominate. So here I am.
So that takes us full circle, puts you into real estate. Let's start where, as you start to make that transition, what are those 2 or 3 things in your head that just bugged you the entire time? Like, man, if I was in real estate, if I was a real estate agent today, if I was selling in real estate, I would do this different.
Totally, yeah. This often came up because as a sales rep selling a software tool to help real estate professionals at Bomb, I saw the good and I saw the bad. One of the things that stood out to me pretty clearly was just this ability to manage the schedule, right? To put things in a calendar and to stick with them. Now that I'm in the industry, I understand it a little bit more, can have a little bit more empathy, but managing the day, I think is a big challenge for real estate professionals, and so that's one thing. And I think the other thing is just, I think unfortunately there's a lot of real estate agents that are really lazy, and get by closing deals because it's a good market. And really, really doesn't require a lot of sales expertise. So those are probably the two things. Like just being lazy. I think that's probably way too common. And then the time management thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about having empathy for the people that I get. Okay, you could be a little bit late here and there. My last real estate agent that sold the house to that they were living in today, and sold our previous house. I remember just thinking I was so impressed that he was 15 minutes early every single time I met with him, and that was a differentiator for me, and that's amazing that that's a differentiator. And like, don't get me wrong, he was a good real estate agent, did everything he needed to do, was really helpful. I recommend him to a lot of people, but that was a differentiator. It's like he's here and he's on time every single time, which is not the case for most real estate agents. So I think from a buyer or a seller's perspective, there is no empathy for it. Like my pet peeve is showing up late to meetings. So if you're showing up late 15 minutes from me, I'm in contract, so it sucks, but I got to deal with it. But that I'm never going to recommend you to anybody ever again. Which most people's real estate business thrives off recommendations. So talk about, all right, you're in this now. You've gone in contract 5 or 6 deals. You sold a house, so congrats. Everybody that's listening, tell Sean congratulations via the reviews on iTunes. We're trying to bump those up. So 5-star review and give Sean the congrats. What's the things that you thought really early on, I'm going to try this and I think it's going to work really well, that maybe hasn't panned out yet? So we'll start there and then we'll dive deeper.
I don't know if I've really had that thought that, like, I know that real estate is a long-term game. If you want to be good, and if you don't want to burn bridges, because people are buying a home, let's say every 5 years, 5 to 7 years. You've really got to do a good job at not coming across like the douchey real estate agent who all he cares about is that commission. I mean, that's really nothing new, right? You have that in SaaS, software as a service. You have that in almost every sales industry that there is. So I don't know if there's. I know that expectation coming into it, and maybe it's just my background. The things take time, and it takes a lot of patience, especially if you want to maintain relationships and not turn people off. In fact, who was just talking with someone the other day? Oh yeah, it's someone who I've actually gotten to know as I've built this kind of side business to supplement the income. I've been building this like personal driver to the airport and back. And so one of the people that I've got kind of as a regular that I take to the airport, she's like, this real estate agent helped me get into this rental that I'm in, but I don't really like her because she's just too pushy. And that's like the kiss of death. If you get someone who starts to think you're too pushy, then you don't get phone calls back, you don't get texts back, and so I realize that things take time. So I don't know if I really have had that thought yet. The one thing that you mentioned earlier, the video, the kind of documenting the journey thing, like I think it's a cool way to tell my story, and it's a cool marketing tool to create some exposure. But I understand, I totally get that that's not going to produce results immediately. So
Right.
it just takes time, I think, and I think that expectation has come from my experience in the industry.
So what's something as you've started to learn, that you start to try, that you feel like you got at least early results on? So you said you've been around the industry for 4 or 5 years, or even longer than that. If you go back to Bomb days, like, you've been around the real estate world for a while. What are some things that early on you're testing the waters in, and you're getting some early traction on? I see you on social. I've seen you do a couple other things. Like, how are you trying to differentiate yourself?
That's a good one. This one may be a little bit too early to tell, because I'm doing some things that, haven't necessarily produced. Like I can't track the deals that I've got going on right now have come from, the team that I'm a part of, thankfully. So I can't yet track the stuff that I'm doing to any of my deals, but here very soon, even with these deals, I'm going to be able to ask for referrals. And if I've done a good job, I really try and come at it from a servant perspective, and I think that's really key because when you're a servant to someone and you come out with that sort of servant mentality, it's what's best for them. That's the sort of attitude that I think a servant has. So one of the things that I think will work here very soon, especially after formally closing my first deal on Thursday, I know I've done a good job at serving these people, at being available, at getting back with them in a responsive time. And, in this particular deal that closed, it got a little messy, actually. We were negotiating back and forth, and anyway, so it was a little tense at some points, and I thought a couple of times that the deal was going to fall apart. But the referral thing, I think I'm going to go with that to answer your question. The referral component, I think, will work really well because I'm confident in my ability to serve people and take care of people.
So talk about the negotiation side as much as you possibly can, and so you walk in your first negotiation, and this is where I'm not understanding the world of real estate as much, and where you can and cannot push or cannot say. Talk about your thought process. You're helping your clients, and you talk about being a servant. How did you help your clients walk through that negotiation, and then what is the things that you brought from the past into that conversation that helped you in that first negotiation?
Yeah, I think this is a really good one, and the whole art of negotiation is challenging and it's really intimidating for a lot of people. But I approached it with these clients with options. Here are your options. Here are the routes that you can go. You can choose A, you can choose B or C, and here are the likely outcomes if you choose each of those three options. So presenting them with options, and then helping them understand what the likely results are. And this is like positive and negative too. Like if you go this route, here's a likely scenario. I'm just kind of pulling something out of the air here, for like a buyer client. In fact, I had this conversation tonight. If you offer less than what they're asking, which is understandable because I think that the property is overpriced, you could turn those sellers off and they not want to work with you if you lowball it too much. If you offer a little bit under what they're asking, they might be more likely to entertain the idea, and then you can engage them in negotiations. So providing them with options, I think, is key, and allowing the seller or the buyer to make that decision. In regards to the negotiation piece, there's something that I've been on. Interestingly, I've been on Ask Gary Vee a few times. One of the questions that I asked was around negotiation because I was really curious to get his opinion, and I've really taken it to heart and applied this to times where I've been in negotiation. And essentially, his response was, as fast as possible, find out what the other person's end game is, what they're trying to get at, and determine from that point if you can meet them somewhere in the middle, or if you're okay with accepting their terms. If you're okay with accepting their terms, good. You've now saved yourself time, because what happens is if you don't try and understand what that person's end result needs to be, then you're just kind of butting heads, and you're not trying to understand the other person's perspective. So, Gary Vaynerchuk. Gary Vaynerchuk's advice to try and understand and try to meet in the middle, I really, really kind of take to heart, and that's exactly what happened in this deal that my first deal that I closed. It's okay. What do your sellers need to get out of this? What do they absolutely have to have, and then try and match what my clients were trying to get at as an absolute, and find some sort of meeting in the middle.
Now, when you came at the other real estate agent that way, how do they adjust to that? Was that something that they felt did they adjust like it's something they hear all the time, or is it something that maybe kind of took them back a little bit, made them think, and made them go back to their clients to have that kind of conversation? I mean, do you think that's something that's unique to the space?
I don't know. As I mentioned, this negotiation was a bit tense. There was some finger pointing and blaming, and I'm of the opinion that that's not very constructive at all. When you start to blame or point out, where things should have been different or could have been done differently, you just don't make a lot of progress. And so, since this is my first negotiation in real estate, it was kind of hard to tell whether that was his style of negotiation, and he was just trying to use that to manipulate me, or whether that he was really, really angry about it. I can't tell, because I don't have a lot to compare it to in the real estate space. But it was tense, because I could tell that he was really kind of pushing, and like I said, I couldn't tell if it was a front or not. But at a couple of points, I really thought, okay, they have told me, or this person has told me, that they're not going to give any more, and that the deal is going to be done. And a couple of times they actually came back and said, okay, we'll do this. And this, I think, actually, I want to bring up another thing in regards to negotiation, before we potentially move on. One of the takeaways that I got from this exercise of going through this process of negotiating this real estate deal is the importance of being willing to walk away, or at least knowing where that walk away point is. Because if you don't, then you're always giving. And sometimes you just have to say, this truly is my last offer, or
Right.
the last point in which I feel like I can give and still, get something in return in this deal. Walking away, I mean, that was really the point where, my clients told me, okay, this is it. I mean, no more. And to take that and say, really, truly, I mean, if your clients are not willing to do this, then we're going to have to, call this off, and we'll put the house back on the market, and we'll find another buyer. And I think that was super key in getting the deal done, knowing that, okay, there's a walk away point.
Yeah, I think we'll touch on one more thing, and then we'll move on. I think as I purchased a house, being a seller, the best sellers in the world will do that. They know when to walk away. They know when to put their cards down and then fold and let it go. And I remember having the conversation with my real estate agent. We were having a conversation around like $300 item. And I sat there with him. I was like, listen, his name was Russell. I was like, Russell, I'm not going to jeopardize whatever the size of deal that was. It's like over $300. It's like, I'm not going to walk away from it. I want you to get the deal done. And that was it. I mean, there was one thing. He's like, I just wish other people thought that way. He's like, people don't. And a lot of times people they're so hung up on the fact that the $300 item they just purchased in their house has to be thrown into the deal or not thrown into the deal or whatever that is. Like, you're going to blow up a couple of hundreds of thousands of dollars or more type of deal for $300. and I think there's something for you to understand. And I think from a real estate agent perspective, to slow them down and not feel like you're pitching and selling too hard. That's a hard thing to do with your clients, but get them to understand that you have a lot of money on the table. If you blow this deal up, it could jeopardize you, because if you have a deal slip, it's going to cost you potentially tens of thousands of dollars over a $300 item. So I think that's something for people to really, really kind of wrap their head around. And I wish when I purchased my first house that I had a real estate agent that would slow down and walk me through that type of scenario, that if you don't buy this, it could have potentially having the secondary effects and tertiary effects of it could be XYZ. I think that's really important, and I hope more real estate agents slow down and just say, this is the problem, this is why it exists, this is why you're doing it. I want the expert to come and tell me why. I mean, that's why I'm employing somebody to be my real estate agent.
I agree, and I'll add to that thought, because I haven't gotten this as an objection to earning someone's business yet. I anticipate this coming at some point, but I've definitely thought through this. Like, what's the value of a real estate agent? You know, like sometimes you get people say, this is a really great market, why don't I just sell this house myself? And there's a few reasons that comes to mind, but to kind of stay on topic, you have like a professional negotiator who's willing to go in your defense to get the best deal possible on a house, whether on the buying or listing side. I think that's really, really valuable to be able, because a lot of people just don't. It takes practice to negotiate and to really kind of know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. So, for those that are listening to this and you're like thinking, is a real estate agent really worth it? Yeah, you could probably get your house sold, but having someone who knows how to navigate those negotiation waters to get you the best price possible is I think one of a handful of unique things that a real estate agent can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on a little bit. I think you touched a lot on the negotiation side. So talk about some of the things you've learned in your past of just your marketing. You're a marketer and you're a salesperson full time. What are some things that you've learned in the past to market yourself that you really want to put a stronghold on and start proactively doing, that you actually wish more real estate agents were out there doing, and you're just kind of curious why they haven't yet?
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I really like this. So I don't know at what point this began, but I really feel like I've got a pretty good handle on leveraging the internet in general, social media, video. These sort of things I think are really interesting. And if you follow the statistics of the National Association of Realtors, the average age of a real estate agent is like 54 years old, and they're a woman, right? So that's like the typical real estate agent. And you think about the time frame in which this 54-year-old person grew up. It was pre-internet. Like they were well into their 40s, late 30s, early 40s, before the internet kind of matured and came of age, where people were actually starting to use it to do business. So I think if I were to boil it down to one thing that I feel like I'm doing well that other people are not, like it's my competitive advantage, it's the video component. I know a lot of successful real estate agents in Denver, but I can't think of a single one who's actually bringing people into their world through video. Whether that's, Facebook Live or YouTube, or even something like this, I think is really interesting for real estate. So being able to leverage video, I think, is a massive, massive opportunity. And there's so many different ways to slice that pie, right? You can do the video podcasting and put it up on YouTube. You can do Facebook Live, but you can also do what we've talked about already, which is provide a recap or a summary of interesting points in your day. And the way that I'm thinking about this, like the theme of what I'm trying to do is, I see myself as a TV station. right? So I'm a television channel, and I want to bring people into my reality TV. So I'm doing videos that highlight different things that I do in my real estate day. And so sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just playing with the kids. But this next video that will come out that I'll put together um, talks about, well, one of the pieces of this video will be um, taking my family to a grand opening for a new Tesla store that Tesla opened up in Denver, and talking about why that's important to me to invest into an electric car and to be a part of that electric car movement. So it doesn't always have to be about real estate. In fact, I think people buy into you more when they see the authenticity of, oh, this guy's a family man. Oh, this guy has 2 kids. One of his kids just had a birthday. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the video component and is a massive opportunity for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I think there's something to. I mean, look how many people watch HGTV. I mean,
Exactly.
there's a draw to. I just want to put my eyes inside of that house and just see what the heck's going on inside of it. But people are really interested in where they live and where other people live and the type of dwellings that are out there in the world. Like it's fascinating. It's why tiny homes is a thing, because people are just fascinated that somebody could actually live that way. Like, why would you live in 900 square feet? What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
I think there's something like that. There's that element to it, and you can become a YouTube star almost of HGTV in this day and age so easily. It just takes effort. I think that's half of it. I mean, for you and I, like we've put a lot of time and effort now into Real Sales Talk, and I feel just now we're starting to gain some real traction.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of faithful listeners, and we're incredibly grateful for everybody that we've done, because we put time and effort into this every single week. But I think that's the thing, is like, you got to start. You got to start somewhere. Like, you got to do something, and you got to get rolling. And once you get rolling, I think it's going to start snowballing. And I think there's so much with the real estate side that if you can just push, like, people want, like, you put a picture up the other day of like a beautiful home that you're selling on Instagram.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care who you are. If you're in Denver and you see that, you're going to look at it like, who's this guy that posted this picture? Wow, that's a beautiful home. I want to live there. Like, it's that type of thing. Like, it just gets 5 or 6 other people to start following you.
Yeah, I agree. And I was just going to check, actually. Yeah, I actually just got an offer submitted. It came in at 922. So got an offer for that house that I posted a picture of that went live on Friday. Today's Sunday when we're recording this. So it's cool. But what I wanted to add to that is, I can hear a lot of people say, okay, I totally agree. I think I should be doing more video. I want to do more video, but I'm just so afraid. I hate the sound of my voice. I hate how I look when I watch the video again. And I think it would be cool, actually, to kind of wrap up on this, which is, how do you address those concerns, fears, that sort of thing? And do you remember the interview that we did with Amy Schmidauer? It was like beginning of 2017.
Yeah, I think it was really early, season 5, but awesome interview. One of my favorite interviews of season 5.
That's kind of one of the questions that I had, and I'll look up the episode here in just a second, because if you haven't listened to that one, our listeners should definitely do that. So how do you get over that? Because that actually came up a lot when I worked for BombBomb, which is a video email company. How do you get over that fear? And the best way to get over the fear, I think, is just to start somewhere. Everyone has a beginning. And everyone, here it is. I'm just finding the episode here. It's season 4, episode 10. It looks like. Let me just double check. I can't see the number without actually clicking into it. Season 4, episode 10. Yeah. So go check out Amy Schmidauer. She talks about how to build a personal brand through vlogging and video. But what I want to say about this, and I think this would be a cool way to kind of wrap things up, is how do you get over that fear and concern of using video? And it's just starting somewhere, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be something grand and big, like what we're doing right now with Real Sales Talk, recording a video, live streaming it, and then putting it on YouTube and iTunes and Google Play and all these other things. You know, we actually, when this thing first started, we didn't, it wasn't that big, right? It was just, we were just doing YouTube. In fact, I think we were just doing Blab at the time in the very, very early stages. So we've grown this. And the more that you do this, the more that you do video, the more that you practice it, the better you become. And incremental change, I think, is really key. So start off with something that's easy for you to accomplish. Maybe it's a 2-minute tip. You know, here's your 2-minute market update for the city of Denver. And you just talk for 2 minutes. And you know what's going to happen is, most likely, because you're talking about something that you know and you do every day, it's probably going to be longer than 2 minutes because you get into it. But if you let that fear get in the way, then you never discover that you actually have a lot to say about the topic that you spend every single waking moment doing. So start small. Incremental changes, incremental improvements, I think, is a really, really great way to start. And then eventually, at some point, you just have to get over yourself, right?
Yeah.
People end up seeing you anyway if you're in real estate, and so why not let them not be surprised by what you look like? Send them a video, send them a thank you. Hey, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it, and I hope we can work together very soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think there's a lot to, so you had an interview with Laura Madison, same concept. So different industry, auto industry, but she started off just putting YouTube videos out there about how do you negotiate a car deal? When should I get an oil change? How do I go find the right salesperson at the right dealer? Like little things about why you want to go buy a car, things you run into problems with about buying a car. And she was in like North Dakota or something, some like weird, really deserted type of state.
Montana.
It wasn't Montana, right?
Montana.
So she was, sorry to anybody that's in Montana, like not, but it wasn't like she was in a big metropolitan New York area. Like she was in a very small town in Montana that she was driving real business to her dealership to come see her, because she was the one who put up videos. Absolutely amazing. And if there's a quick interview with Laura Madison, if you guys haven't found that, go back and listen to that one. But it's that concept, like just if you're a real estate agent, go put out a tip of how to learn how to negotiate real estate contracts from a buyer side, things that you want to know. How do you do it from the seller side? What do you look for in a house your first time buying? Like those are things that people need to go see. And I think there's things like what Sean and I are doing. Everybody in Real Sales Talk that's an avid listener knows that you're now a real estate agent in Denver.
Yeah.
If anybody ever expats and comes into Denver, they're going to look you up. Like I would imagine, they're like, Sean, I want Sean to be my real estate agent. I hope he's not too booked because of everybody else that's moving to Denver.
Yeah.
Like I think there's something to that.
And you know, I know this is maybe a little bit more lengthy of an interview, so thanks for those that are kind of hanging. But I think there's some really, really good nuggets here. I mean, I can hear, Phil, people say, whenever I get in front of the camera, I just freeze up. Well, why don't you flip the camera around and do a little short mini tour of your property that you're about to do an open house on? You know, do a little 60-second or minute and a half. Like you can go on Instagram, and Instagram will let you do a minute and a half of video. Do a quick video of the outside of the house, walk into the house, and show everyone your favorite parts of the house. Maybe it's the kitchen, maybe it's the stainless steel appliances, or maybe it's the wood floor, maybe it's the entertainment. Like in that scenario, you don't have to be in front of the camera, and you don't have to look at yourself, but you can actually, you know, use the rear-facing camera and give people like a little tour, like you're Robin Leach from The Rich and Famous.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to start somewhere. Yeah. So I think that's the gist of it, is be a servant when you're a real estate agent. Know how to schedule your time and just start somewhere. I think that's kind of the gist of the entire show, if you could wrap it up into a quick little bubble, right? So, Sean, absolutely loved having you on as a guest today. So, if somebody wants to know where you're at, how to get in touch with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, totally. You know, I'm on every social media platform, and pick your flavor, right? I'm on Instagram as Sean Michael Mitchell. I'm on Facebook as the same, Sean Michael Mitchell. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. If you want to send me an email, send it to Real Sales Talk. And if it's, if it's about the podcast, or you want to share your thoughts or your takeaways, Sean at realsalestalk.live. If you've got a referral or you're moving into Denver, shoot me an email. It's Sean at for Colorado, colistings.com. Sean at colistings.com.
Sean, absolute pleasure to catch up and hear about what's going on in the real estate world. Any real estate agents out there that absolutely are crushing it and want to come on the show, shoot us an email, Sean at realsalestalk.live, or Phill with 2 L's at realsalestalk.live. We look forward to hearing from you guys. I think this is a topic that we can push harder on. I'm super interested in the real estate side. I'm sure Sean is, because obviously you are. But we're starting to pick up some listeners in the real estate agents world, or real estate world. So love to make sure all of our listeners are picking up something that's helpful for them. So, Sean, thanks for coming on. Everybody in the Real Sales Talk world, we'll see you in the next one.
Laters.